Welcome to the Fatal Facts of Fentanyl. This is dedicated to raising awareness of the illicit fentanyl crisis hitting the USA. It is killing tens of thousands of people who suffer from substance abuse, disorders, and first-time users. There are no boundaries. It is straight across the board with a number of deaths without any regard to race, sex, socioeconomics, age, education, religious background, or location. It is in every community within our country. The fentanyl crisis is deadlier than ever before for various reasons. It is time to address the many issues surrounding this crisis. It is time to listen and learn from experts. It is time to hear the many stories from people who have lost their loved ones due to death by deception. Change begins with each of us as individuals and collaboration with others towards this positive transformation. The goal is to save lives and families from this travesty. Awareness and education are the key. Knowledge is power. I am your host, Lisa Carol Cood, an educator and advocate to help bring awareness to the fentanyl crisis touching every facet of our society. I am a mother who recently lost her son to fentanyl poisoning. I know firsthand the pain of grief surrounding the loss of my firstborn son. I created this podcast in hopes of channeling my heartbreak and put my energy into trying to prevent similar tragedies. I find solace and strength in working to spare other families a similar grief and any person battling this addiction. Tragedy has a way of being something powerful. This is in honor of my beautiful son's life, forever 32. Right here on Fatal Facts of Fentanyl, you will learn from experts on the front line combating the many issues surrounding fentanyl. You will hear personal stories from families and friends who have lost their loved ones and have taken their grief and pain to turn it around to make positive changes and bring awareness and education. You will also listen to people who have struggled with an opioid addiction and are still struggling and are now in active recovery. All of us share a common bond. We are all here to make a difference. We are all here to bring you the fatal facts of fentanyl. The role of law enforcement in addressing illegal drugs in general and opioids specifically has evolved through time. It seems that law enforcement agencies are working toward three different goals. Number one, preventing opioid fatalities. Number two, provide longer-term assistance to opioid users to help them into recovery. Number three, enforcing laws against the illegal sales of opioids. By the very nature of their work, law enforcement are on the front lines of the opioid crisis. My next guest is a United States Navy veteran, a retired state police officer, and now a federal officer assigned to the Narcotics Division. Also, sadly to say, a father who lost his son to fentanyl. Can you even imagine how you would feel that you devoted your whole career in trying to combat these crimes, and your own son would lose his life to the very same thing that you've been fighting? I can't imagine. My next guest is Rick. He has seen everything imaginable in his career and is enduring the most pain with the loss of his own son to this fentanyl crisis in our country. Welcome, Rick. First and foremost, my deepest heartfelt empathy for you and your family. Also, my gratitude and appreciation for your devoted service to your country. As painful as it is, please share with us your son and how you tried so hard to educate and save his life.
Lisa, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. I have to be honest with you. I wish I wasn't here talking to you about the dangers of fentanyl, but unfortunately, not only myself being in law enforcement over 25 years, I fight the fight every day trying to get the drugs off the street. Never in a million years would I think our family would have been hit by the tragedy of fentanyl. I tried to educate my son about the dangers of drugs. We thought we had him on the right path. My son just graduated last year. He was set to go to college, and unfortunately last year we lost our 19-year-old son. For me, my son, he was always, people would say I was smart, and my son, he just was amazing, and that's what kills our family, is that the loss of life of our son and the potential that he had. We first started realizing that my son was into drugs, and never did in a million years would we think that he would even go down the path of doing fentanyl. My son had first started with marijuana, and then later the marijuana, it did progress to the vape cartridges, and then later to vape. I believe he did some other drugs. In July of last year, in 2020, was the first time we realized that my son was doing fentanyl. And as you can imagine, as any parent, we actually went to check on my son in the morning and found him lying on the floor. One of the things that I do in my career is I get all types of drugs off the street. And lucky for me, that particular day, I had Narcan, which it's called Narcan or naloxone. I rushed up and I went from, dad mode to cop mode. And just like I did when I was a state police officer, I provided, law or first aid to people. Once again, never would I think I'd be doing first aid CPR on my own son. Fortunately, in July of last year, I was able to give my son a couple shots of Narcan. We called the ambulance. My son went to the hospital for a couple days. And, at that time, we thought maybe it was just he got a bad batch of pill or something. He didn't know what he was taking. We had no idea of his addiction and how addictive fentanyl can be. We thought our son was, my wife and I, we thought our son was doing well. He was still in school at that, or no, he'd already finished school actually. But he was working, was doing well. We thought he was set to go to college. And I believe it was in August, the second time, a few months later, we found our son again on the floor. Luckily, once again, I had to go into cop mode, give my son Narcan. And, once again, the hardest thing a parent could ever see, seeing your kid lying there and wanting to help them and realizing that, there's only so much you could do. Same thing, ambulance came, they took him to the hospital, went to the hospital for a few days, got out. And that was the toughest thing for us is my son at 19, we were trying to get into some type of program. And unfortunately for us, I'm not sure how it is elsewhere across the country, but there isn't a lot of resources when somebody's adult, considered 19, and, parents, even though our son was living at home, we couldn't force him to go into some type of program. So we monitored our son. Once again, we thought he was on a good path. And unfortunately, the third and last time we found our son in the morning, it was in October. And same thing, I gave my son Narcan, and it was too late. And when I saw him, I kind of knew it was too late, but I still tried and tried and tried until the ambulance got here, and I was not able to revive him. And so that's my story. And unfortunately, I hear stories of like that, not just in my state, but all across the country.
Yes, Rick. I am so sorry about your son. And you're right. This is straight across the board. There's no boundaries. It's all over this country, and it's going to continue, as you well know. You mentioned Narcan. A lot of people in our audience are aware of Narcan, but then a lot of people are not aware of Narcan. Can you explain to our audience what Narcan is?
So Narcan, and if you're watching this, I want to tell everybody that everybody is at risk. If you have a young adult, if you have kids, if even if you don't, I mean, uh, the fentanyl is everywhere. Everybody's at risk. If you don't have Narcan, go get some. There's places where you can get free Narcan. There's places you can go to Walgreens and get Narcan, sometimes free or relatively pretty cheap. But Narcan helps reverse the effects of overdose. It doesn't cure the overdose, but it brings them back essentially from that fatal dose. It helps reduce that, and because like my son, the fentanyl was so strong that the body forgets to stop breathing. So luckily, when I had hit my son with Narcan, the Narcan was actually able to bring him back and help him breathe.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that explanation. And yes, people need to contact their state about the availability of Narcan or your county that you live in. Like Rick just stated, it is free for a lot of people, or it is prescription. But the main thing is to have Narcan in your home. Most law enforcement do carry Narcan to combat this, and also EMS people, the emergency responders, first responders, and of course the ERs. But it is important nowadays, like he just explained, due to this fentanyl crisis and, all the opioids and all the drugs floating around, it's important to have Narcan on board.
I want to share
Go ahead.
story with you. About 2, 3 weeks ago, I came across a mother that had suspected that her kid was using drugs. And I did ask her if she had Narcan at home, and she said she didn't. And I actually gave her some. And she suspected her son was just using marijuana and other things. And, same like my son, didn't know the extent of possibly what he was doing. And unfortunately, I prayed to her. I said, here's Narcan. I explained how to use it. And I prayed that she would never have to use it. And unfortunately, the day I gave it to her, she used it that night, saved her kid. And so far, her kid's on the right path. And I hope he continues down that road.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that story. And as you stated, fentanyl and these drugs can be in weed and pot, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, all these counterfeit pills. So Narcan can possibly work on saving somebody's life. And thank you for introducing that mom to it. If you will, please provide our audience your law enforcement background that you are allowed to share with us at this time.
Yes, well, I'm proud to share that I'm a United States Navy veteran. I proudly served 4 years for our country. After I got out, I went to college, and then I was fortunate to get picked up with the state police. And I worked everything from the front line. I did patrol. My day-to-day patrol was to respond to calls, not only be proactive, but reactive. And I fought the fight for my state. Arrested criminals, took criminals off the street, and then I was fortunate to continue to move up through the ranks. I finished in our training division, and then ended up finishing out with our special operations division, where I did a wide variety of things, everything from overseeing our SWAT team to bomb team, and pretty much all aspects of our department, and search and rescue, other things like that. Currently, I'm a federal officer. I'm assigned to the narcotics division. I'm not allowed to share who I work with, but I'm the narcotics division that I work with. It's my job now, and my unit that I work with. Our job every day is to go out there and locate and arrest people who possess, distribute, and manufacture illegal narcotics. And unfortunately, even back when I was a state police officer, I got some drugs, and I would get drug dealers and drug users. But now in my job as a federal officer, the amount of drugs that we see on a daily, weekly basis, it's unbelievable. Even this week, I got a felon with a gun with fentanyl, and that was a career felon. And that's one, I'll talk a little bit later about that, but that's one of the problems today in our state, and I believe the 50 states across the United States, is that the state court system is broken. And fortunately for us now, when we get somebody on federal charges, they get hit pretty hard. I recently took down a felon. It was a long-term investigation. And we got him with a wide variety of drugs, everything from cocaine to heroin. And also he was a felon with a gun. And, I'm sad to say we were able to get a conviction on him, and he's going to be going away for a little while. So on the state side, we'll probably get a slap on the wrist and, a free gift card,
Thank you. You kind of touched upon my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway in case we left out anything. I wanted you to explain to our audience your firsthand experiences with the disruption of the drug trafficking operations that supply our communities with fentanyl. As you're allowed, without divulging sensitive information, if you can provide as many details as you possibly can.
Sure. So our main goal is to deter, detect, and destroy. So essentially, that's one of the things that we try and do is we try and locate drug dealers. And we don't just go after the street level drug dealer. We go up the chain. We essentially go upstream. We try and put the hurt where we could put the hurt. I could share with you even this week, we don't just go after the drug dealers, but we'll get them, we'll arrest anybody that's connected to them, anybody that is involved in that drug trafficking organization. Well, if we can prove that they were involved in that, we will arrest them. And when they get hit on federal charges, they go away for a little while. The other thing that we do is we don't just stop there. In fact, even this week, I was involved in a seizure that was well over probably somewhere around $150,000 in cash. So when we start taking their money, it makes a big difference. We kind of hurt them. So, I know I could speak for myself and the people in my unit. Each and every day, we go out trying to find and arrest somebody. Sometimes we get a quick and easy hit where we take somebody down, and then there's other types of investigations that are long-term investigations that are a little more complex when we know somebody is deep-rooted in a community and dealing drugs in those communities. And I could share with you this with you is that there are cells all over the United States, and they continue to do this. Some will operate a year, some will operate 5 years or 10 years, and the reason that they're allowed to continue is some of them they're sneaky, and but they continue to do this because it's so profitable.
It is. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, as you know. What are you seeing in our country now? In your opinion, is this the worst you have ever seen infiltrating our country with this fentanyl?
I probably first started, and I can't remember when I first started seeing fentanyl. It's been quite a few years now, but it just seems over the last 4 or 5 years, it has just progressed and progressed and progressed. And as you know, just in the last year, unfortunately, we lost 93,000 U.S. citizens. And unfortunately, my son was one of those 93,000. And as you well know, your son. And it's like no family is, everybody's at risk with what's happening. And I've never seen it so bad. This is the worst I've ever seen, what we're dealing with on a daily basis.
It most certainly appears that way. Yes, sir. It's so tragic. A lot of Americans don't understand about the fentanyl crisis. Probably due because there's not any public health awareness campaigns going on nationwide, or perhaps a lot of our government and politicians are not talking about it. Our schools really aren't educating about it. So, can you explain this question to me? Because I get asked this a lot, and I'm sure you do too. Why would a drug dealer kill their clients?
Well, one of the reasons drug dealers don't intend to kill their clients, unfortunately, that's what's happening. Once again, the proof is in the pudding. 93,000 people died last year. But the reason that the drug dealers once again, they're not trying to kill their clients. They're trying to profit off the death of U.S. citizens. And one of the reasons that it is so profitable, can you imagine? It's not just 93,000 people that died. 93,000 people weren't the only ones that are taking fentanyl. There are hundreds and if not millions of people across the United States using drugs every day. And so while 93,000 died, the number of people that lived that didn't die, they're profiting off the death of our kids, off our young adults and citizens. And once again, it's so profitable, and that's why they continue to do it. The other thing is that they're profiting off of the death of citizens. And the reason that it's so profitable is that I could speak for my son, and once again, I'm sure your son as well, is that kids, they have a bulletproof mentality. They have a fearlessness, and they think, my friend Joe, he passed away from fentanyl, and, I use fentanyl and it's not going to affect me. Well, that's not the case. They continue to use it. And eventually that's the danger of the pills on the street, is that they're different level of batches. I just recently talked to a drug dealer the other day that was actually a user of fentanyl that I had arrested. And I asked him, he had told me he took 2 pills that morning. And I asked him, I said, well, aren't you afraid that if you take 2 pills, and I could speak for my son, I think it was 1. And I said, how did you know to take 1 pill or 2 pill? And he essentially told me, I take 1 pill, and after I pass out, if I wake up an hour and a half, and if it hadn't knocked me out, for more than that, then I know it's a weak batch of pills, and I could take another pill. Unfortunately, I'm sure you all have heard the story with Dr. Laura Berman. She, and this is another danger. She, her son, I believe, got it off of Snapchat, and they checked on him. I think it was an hour, half hour, and when they went to check on him, gone. And it's everybody's at risk with this dangerous fentanyl that's on our streets.
Everyone is at risk. It seems like there's different categories to this. There are the seasoned users. I call them the seasoned users who have an addiction to opioids, and they are using fentanyl, and they know they're using fentanyl. And somehow, by the grace of God, they are alive, but still using fentanyl. I also did an interview with a young lady who told me all the facts about the fentanyl high. It was the best high. It surpasses heroin and anything else. And that was her description. And I asked her the same question, knowing that people are dying in record numbers in this country, and you still are using fentanyl. Why? And she couldn't give me a logical answer. She goes, I don't know why. I don't know why, Lisa. All I know is it's highly, highly addictive. Then you've got the seasoned user who thinks they're buying cocaine or even heroin or Oxycontin or Percocet or whatever, or pot, and then it is laced or cut into all these drugs, fentanyl is, and they are being poisoned because they are buying something that they are not aware of. It's like if arsenic was put in something like our drink or food at a restaurant, we'd be poisoned. That's what they're doing. They're being deceived, thinking they're buying another drug. And say, for instance, that they thought they were buying cocaine and it was pure fentanyl. That's death by deception. That's murder.
Yes.
Then you've got what you explained, Dr. Laura Berman's son, 16 years old. I believe his name was Sammy. This is happening across our country, too. You've got the middle school age, the high school age, going on Snapchat, social media, being groomed, either, by dealers, and also that, Snapchat is encrypted information. The message goes away. However, they're being sold pot or Adderall or Xanax or Percocet or Oxycontin, thinking it's that, and they're being told that, and then all of a sudden they're found dead, just like what you described, because it's all straight fentanyl. While we're on the subject, can you describe how the many ways fentanyl is ingested? A lot of people have the misconception that someone is shooting up with a needle in their arm. That's what's depicted in our entertainment, in our movies. Can you share with us the facts about the many ways fentanyl is ingested?
Sure. The ways that I've seen fentanyl ingested, most commonly people actually will ingest it, but another common way is they'll actually break it up and they'll actually smoke it. I know I can speak for my son. We actually didn't find this out till later, but it was actually some tinfoil. You'll see some black in the tinfoil, and they'll have a tube, and they'll actually smoke it. And one of the reasons I believe they like, that's one of their preferred methods, because it hits them a little quicker. It gets into their system versus ingesting it, so it's a little quicker. I've also seen where users will break up the pill and they'll snort it like you would cocaine. And I've heard of people, mixing it and ingesting it with a needle, but fentanyl it's so easy to smoke or ingest or snort that it's not very common to see somebody ingest or inject it with a needle.
Thank you for clarifying that. Also, you touched upon the vapes, the cartridges in vapes. Please share with us your knowledge about the cartridges and the vapes and the THC levels, and what do all of these drugs do to the brain chemistry?
So that, once again, unfortunately, firsthand, our family experienced that, and never in a million years did I think that our son would have progressed where he did. But the vapes is right now on the street. It's legal to buy. You could go down to your local gas station or even your grocery store and buy vape cartridges and the vape pens. Even the legal stuff, where you actually have the which is the cigarette, the nicotine. It's so potent. It's essentially almost in a day you're almost smoking like a pack of cigarettes. As far as the vape cartridges with THC, years ago when we used to get people with just marijuana on the street, the percentage of marijuana in just a regular marijuana joint would probably be somewhere between 3 to 6%. The THC vape cartridges that we're seeing now, they're anywhere between 80 to 90%. And I believe that was one of the things that affected my son. And we should have seen the signs. Well, but we chalked it up to a teenager and a moody teenager. But I believe, and I know our son was affected by the high doses of THC. It affects the compound of the brain. Their brain isn't fully developed till they're 25. So whether they're using these vape cartridges and the THC vape cartridges, it's affecting their brain compound. And I can actually speak to that people talk about, marijuana is not a gateway drug. It may not be for everybody, but unfortunately it was for my son. And when he progressed from marijuana to THC to, fentanyl, I think that change in his compound, he had that drive to try and fill that void. And, my son, he was actually bit. And I think, unfortunately, kind of like getting bit by a snake, is once they're bit, it has a hold on them and they can't escape it. It just never lets go. And unfortunately, 93,000 people were similar to my son and unfortunately lost their life.
When you just said that about the snake and being bit, I had this visual of this huge, big old rattlesnake somewhere. And like you said, it is poison. It's very poisonous. Rick, let's now talk about, go back to your law enforcement mode. When a policeman is doing an investigation, can you please explain to our audience what probable cause is, what they mean when to build a good case, and then also what happens if they don't build a good case? And I know this is a loaded question and probably a lengthy one, but I would like to educate our audience about this so there's no misconceptions, and the blame game has got to stop in this country. The stigma towards everybody, to me, that's my opinion. But can you explain the legal process in our judicial system?
Sure. Well, first, to explain probable cause, and I could put it in a very simple way. And for crimes, there are elements to each crime. So, for example, if I'm charging somebody with possession of illegal narcotics with intent to distribute, that crime itself, it has elements, and those elements I would say are like pieces of a puzzle. I have to prove each piece of that puzzle in order to get to charge somebody, and to our ultimate goal is to get a conviction. So we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that more likely than not that person did possess drugs with intent to distribute. So we have to show that. So that's what we do on a daily basis. We go after people. We do an investigation, and like I said, sometimes it's a short-term investigation that we catch somebody with their hand in the cookie jar. They possess enough drugs to be charged, and they go down. There's other people that they're longer-term investigations, that they're higher-level drug dealers. They're a little smarter. They have other people that work for them. It takes us a while to work the chain and get to what we call the big fish. But I could speak for my agency and other agencies across the country is that we try and work together and get as much as we can. But unfortunately, even myself and other agencies that are going out there and fighting this fight every day, what we're getting and what is getting through is two different things. And, we continue to fight the fight and try and get as much as we can, because I know, and I could speak for myself and my unit, that when any little bit of drugs that we get off the street, we're saving somebody. We're making a small difference, and that's why we do what we do.
Thank you. What types of evidence are necessary and permissible in court?
Well, we have to show, for example, now, obviously, I could speak, for example, like fentanyl. We would never bring fentanyl into a courtroom. It would be too dangerous. So what we do is when we seize the drugs, we get the drugs, we take photographs. Sometimes we'll video. We'll talk to the people suspected of doing what they're doing. We send the drug off to the lab. The lab will test the drugs. So we use all that evidence, and all that evidence helps us if we have to go to court. Sometimes when we go through the court process, we have to go through a trial, and it'll either be a judge or jury trial. Most common, it's 12 jurors that oversee. Both sides get to have the opportunity to present their case, and that's when if we present a good case, we get a guilty conviction. If we do a sloppy job, we lose the case. But ultimately, that's our goal, is to get a guilty conviction. But a lot of times, when we have a good solid case and there's no, I would say, break in the chain, the case is so solid that a lot of times they'll take a plea deal, because if they go to trial, they'll face more time if they lose in trial versus taking a plea deal from the court or their attorney's office.
Yeah, a plea bargain, right?
Yes.
Okay. All of us grieving parents have lost our sons and daughters. And of course, we want immediate action when this happens. And a lot of us are told, well, we have to get probable cause and we have to build a good case. And our question is, well, so you're allowing, who the drug dealers are, and you're still allowing them to be on the streets killing other people. Well, that's our immediate emotional response. And everyone can understand that. But then can you explain to us across the country how it goes a step further? Most communities have a drug task force or narcotics division, and they are going after the dealers, the dealers in our communities, and the cartel that are sweeping our nation in all communities. Can you explain to us a little bit about that, what I am trying to convey?
Well, one of the things that I could share with you is that earlier when you said people want immediate action, unfortunately, with these type of drug investigations, that I could drive 20, 30 miles from where I currently live, and I could find a drug dealer. And I may know or believe that he's a drug dealer or she, but I can't just knock on the door and say, hey, drug dealer, I'm taking you to jail. Like I stated earlier, we have to prove those pieces of the puzzle. So that's where we come in, myself and other people that I work with. We do an investigation, and throughout the course of our investigation and other tactics that we use, we build those pieces of puzzle. We put a nice puzzle together, and when we present that to the United States Attorney's Office, then now and only then can we actually charge somebody. So unfortunately, some of those bigger ones, they take longer terms. I've had cases that, once again, I catch somebody, on in a week, and like when I said their hands in the cookie jar, essentially they're in possession of drugs. I could arrest them, charge them, and show that they possess drugs with intent to distribute. Other cases that I've worked, some have taken months, and I've had cases that have lasted a year or more. That were longer term investigations that and sometimes we do that for a reason, is that we may know there's somebody bigger up the chain, and if we take somebody down at a lower level, we're not stopping the problem. We may be taking somebody down, but we know somebody at a higher level is the one that is manufacturing that fentanyl. And I could speak even just this year, we took down a big ring that had a pill press and was actually making pills. So had we picked off the lower level person, we wouldn't have gotten that pill press and the tens of thousands of pills that not only did we seize, but that was out there on the street, and we were able to save some lives with that investigation.
Thank you for explaining that process. Some people may not understand it, but I think it's very important to understand that it is a process in this country, and there are laws and rules that people have to abide to. So it's not thrown out of our courtrooms. So thank you for your hard work. Can you explain to us the different types of indictments?
Sure. Well, there's different types of ways to charge somebody. The United States Attorney's Office, they could file what we call as information, where we present the case to the United States Attorney's Office. They look at the different charges, and they look those charges. They will decide, oh yeah, we're going to charge this person with felon in possession of a gun. They're going to charge them for distributing, manufacturing, producing narcotics. So they'll get charged by information. Another way is sometimes when I come across somebody that is a drug dealer in my unit, when we actually see somebody, we'll actually charge them by a criminal complaint. So we actually fill out the paperwork. I do a criminal complaint and an affidavit. We file that in the court, arrest the offenders, put them in jail, and then they start the court process that way. The last way that somebody can be charged on the federal level is through a grand jury indictment. And kind of similar, we present the case to the Assistant United States Attorney's Office. They look at all the evidence. They have a grand juror, and a grand juror is kind of like a jury, but it's closed, it's sealed, it's confidential. But the case is presented, and if we get a true bill during the grand jury, they will issue the appropriate charges and or arrest warrant if applicable. And then that's when we, or the United States Attorney's Marshals, goes and we hunt down the offenders that are charged with their alleged crimes.
Thank you. While we're on the subject, you've got your local law enforcement, then you've got the Vice and Narcotics Division in most cities and towns. Then you've got the DEA. What role does each of those play in trying to combat this issue?
Well, one of the things I could say is that the unit that I'm currently with, and once again, I'm a federal officer. I work in a narcotics division. Can't disclose who I work for. But one of the reasons that our unit is so successful, and we're one of the most successful in our agency across the country. And one of the reasons that we're so successful, and I hope other officers, if anybody watches it, is that the key to being successful is establishing partnerships. And I work with the state and locals. I work with other federal agencies when they want to work with us. And it's by working together that I believe that we could truly make a difference. And so by working with the state and locals, for example, when the state and local have something, normally the state would charge them at the state level. But when they have something that is possibly a good federal case, what I mean by that is they possess federal level dope, and I won't go down and break down the amounts of different dopes because it's different for different types of drugs. But you have a big drug dealer that should be charged on the federal side, not the state side, we have a little more teeth. We could put a little more hurt on those drug dealers than they could had they been charged on the state side.
Thank you. Okay, Rick, I'm going to ask you some questions. What motivates you? What do you hope happens? If we lived in a perfect world, what do you think needs to happen to further combat this fentanyl crisis?
Well, what motivates me is I've always, once again, I'm proud to have served my country. I'm proud to have served my state, and I'm proud of the job that I'm doing as a federal officer in the narcotics division. What motivates me is I've always had a strong sense of right and wrong. Once again, unfortunately, I wish I wasn't here today. I wish I wasn't the father of a son who lost his life to fentanyl. I even talked to my son about that, and never did I think I would lose my own son after I taught him about the dangers. We're a strong Christian family. And once again, it hit us. It could hit anybody. But what motivates me is I try and get as much drugs off the street. I know that every week, every day, when I make an arrest, and my unit, once again, I'm not taking credit for my unit, but I know by working with the people that I work with, and we get drugs off the street, we're saving somebody. We're saving somebody's life. And so that's what motivates me. In a perfect world, unfortunately, I hate to say, I don't see that happening anytime soon. The fentanyl crisis that is happening across our country, it is at a terrible level. Losing 93,000 lives. I hate to see what's going to happen in another year because the fentanyl that's on the street, it is so potent. Sometimes even one pill kill, and unfortunately, we see that almost every day, every week. And I could speak with the last 2 weeks of situations that I know where people of pills that are on our streets in my state that people are losing their lives. So I actually don't know how to answer that question, actually.
I know it's a very hard question. That's for sure. Why do you think this is happening in our country, killing records and numbers of young adults down to our youth?
Well, unfortunately, I guess I could share this with you is that, China, Mexico, the gangs, the cartel, they've figured it out. It's profitable for them. They make a lot of money, and they don't care if people are dying. They are feeding off the bulletproof mentality of our citizens. They're feeding off that fearlessness, and they're profiting off of people dying. And that's the sad part. And as long as they're profiting, they're going to keep doing it. The other drugs, for example, cocaine, heroin, meth, they cost higher. Fentanyl is so cheap to produce, and it's so profitable. And that's why they're doing it.
I'm going to take this question a step further. Why do you think there's no public health awareness campaigns across our country? Why do you think our government is not talking about it? Why does it appear that our mainstream media is not talking about it? Can you answer that?
What's crazy? I saw something in our U.S. Congress. What was it? The National Transportation Safety Bureau. They're going to be doing a study, and it was something to the effect that they're trying to make a big push to put a breathalyzer in new vehicles down the road. So they're trying to push something to the effect like every car sold has to have that. And we all know DWI is a problem across our country, but unfortunately, our politicians don't get it, and I don't know if they care. Until it hits their family, I don't know if they'll get it. And they obviously, I don't think, are listening to what's really happening on the streets. And so I think for us to get their attention, we need to call our representatives and our U.S. senators, and it needs to start from the top down. And until that does, this is going to continue. I can share that, unfortunately, I believe our current system is broken. I can't speak again for all 50 states across the U.S., but our state court system is a joke. or once again, my unit, we took down a felon with fentanyl this week. This guy was in and out of jail, and I could share with some of the charges. This guy got hit on state charges. He probably had 23. His rap sheet was longer than I am tall. And out of all the charges that he had, they would dismiss him and let him go. Dismiss him, let him go. I think he had maybe 4 or 5 convictions, maybe did, 4 or 5 years in jail, where he probably should have been in jail the rest of his life. It's terrible. And until our state court system's fixed, until they start holding people accountable, the state, they have laws on the books. If the judges would hold people accountable. But as we all seen in California, California is a joke. The state system is completely broken. Look at the crime that's happening. You can even see it up in Oregon and Washington. The state system's broken. So the state system needs to be fixed, and the judges need to start holding people accountable when they commit crimes. And fortunately for my agency, on the federal level, we are able to do that, and the judges are holding people accountable when we present a good case.
It's frightening, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's actually mind-blowing.
Oh, it's scary, and it breaks my heart. It's what's happening, and just the crime and the death that's happening that's preventable.
It could easily be preventable. It's actually a simple concept, when you think about it. And it's a good versus evil. I mean, there's no doubt. And I don't know why our country isn't addressing it like it should. I just, that's probably $1 million question, and probably a lot of various answers to that question. But there are people in this country, I still have faith, there are people like yourself and really good people who are trying to combat this on a daily basis. And we are not going to be silenced. No one in this country, when you're going towards something like this and trying to save our young adults, trickling down to our children, possibly in elementary school for all we know, we've got our work cut out for us. We aim to deal with the factual information on this podcast. I think you touched upon this a little bit, but do you see an end to this? What is the reality of this situation right now?
Unfortunately, I wish I could see into this. I wish I could arrest the biggest fentanyl dealer and it'd be all over. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are involved in this, a lot of legal gangs and people that are selling this. I don't see an end to this. I believe it's going to have to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And I wish that was not the case. But all I could say is, for myself, I'm going to continue to fight the fight. I'm going to continue to go after the people that are trying to poison and kill our kids. The other thing I could say for, people that are watching is it hits people all aspects. I personally know of kids 13 and adults all the way up into their 50s and 60s that have died as a result of fentanyl. So there's no specific age range. It's not just teenagers that are at risk. Everybody's at risk.
Thank you, Rick. As our audience can hear, this battle with all the aspects of fentanyl plaguing our society is not an easy task. This is a constant battle, and we are barely scratching the surface. Everyone in this country should be enraged due to the lack of public awareness and the lack of action and implementation from our government towards saving lives and protecting all citizens. That is the main duty of our elected officials. In every profession, there are good and bad people. Every profession is also affected by this opioid addiction and issue. Gone are the days of drug experimentation. This is literally life or death. Gone are the days with parents thinking, oh, this won't happen to my kid, not my child. There are so many outside influences bombarding people with the internet, social media, all the entertainment world, misinformation of prescription and non-prescription drugs, stigma, mixed messages from our politicians, our mainstream media, etc., etc., etc. Wake up, America. thank God for people like Rick, who is one of the good guys fighting this ongoing battle and is proud to serve his country and lives through his example of fighting the fight while holding on to his hope, faith, and love. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Lisa.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to this weekly podcast. Visit our website, which is linked below in the description. On the website, click on the social media icons and feel free to share this podcast with others. And also, please leave your reviews and ask questions that you would like for me to ask our guest for our next episode dealing with the fatal facts of fentanyl. Enjoy your week. Many blessings.